Alright, Federal Railroad Administration, the ECP brake system for freight service final report released August 2006. Table of contents, executive summary, ECP brake study background, ECP stakeholders, ECP implementation principles, selecting implementation, alternative next steps, rail brake operation, safety impacts, how rail brakes currently work operating under ECP brake technology, operating benefits of the ECP brake technology, safety benefits, failure rates, ECP brake technology, ECP implementation costs and benefits, conversion costs, freight cars standalone versus overlay, conversion, installation economies and scale, experiences anticipated, fuel saving, ECP brake technology, wheel saving, saving the brakes on inspection, saving on brake shoes, increasing network capacity, other cost saving safety benefits. 3 ECP implementation alternatives, PRB implementation plan, 1 railroad implementation plan, new equipment implementation plan, conclusion and next steps. And then Appendix A, railroad braking technology, history and advances. And Appendix B, expert panel members. Appendix C, value measuring methodology. Appendix D, industry experiencing with the ECP brake technology. In Appendix E, VMM, result of her PRB alternative. List of tables and list of figures, and then executive summary. Electronically controlled pneumatic brakes are testing technology offers for the major benefits of the freight train handling, car maintenance, fuel saving, the network capacity. These are used significantly enhance rail safety and efficiency. The expected benefits of the ECP brake technology appears justified, but the investment provided with the conversion is focused first for a high mileage unit train type. Services that would most benefit from use, subsequent conversion, and incorporated lessons learned. The challenge of ECP brake technology implementation threefold. One, equitable distribute of the ECP brake benefits conversion costs that fall uneven between freight railroads and private car owners. How electric controlled pneumatic brake conversion of the particular types of the trains corridors that use the most benefit from technology disrupting capacity constraint with rail freight train operation, how to manage the operating mixing of the electronically controlled pneumatic brakes versus non-electronic controlled pneumatic brake cars and locomotives during a lengthy conversion process. Reported by Booz Allen Hamilton for Federal Railroad Administration addresses. These considerations present 3 alternative plans with electronically controlled pneumatic brake implementation as well as recommended approach. Alright, 1-1. Electrically pneumatic brake study background. Electrically pneumatic brakes are relatively new technology that could eventually replace the conventional air brake system currently used in freight trains, which had its origins in 19th century research of the George Westinghouse. Appendix A provides a detailed review of the history of the brake technology, presents systems of the freight car brake individually at the speed of the air pressure moving from the car to car along with the trains of the often well over a mile in length. Conventional brake contributes to the excessive in-train force changing with the train handling longer stopping distances. Safety rakes prematurely depleting air brake reservoirs. The problems are greatly reduced electronically controlled pneumatic brake mode of operation during which all cars brake simultaneously driving by an electrical signal. After completed procurement of fiscal year 2005, the U.S. Department of Transportation, FRA, selected Booz Allen to conduct the study of the benefits of cost electrically controlled pneumatic brakes for the U.S. rail freight industry. FRA interested in several desirable from studies, a literature search with prior analysis of the benefits of cost of electrically controlled pneumatic brakes for the Booz Allen Collective, the reviewed wide array with the documents of the prior electrically controlled pneumatic brake research from the rail industry. Other sources made available to members of the electronic expert panel on the Passport Protected Project website. The literature generally reflected 2 themes. 1, electrically controlled pneumatic brakes have an extensively successfully tested variety of freight services in the U.S. and abroad. 2, the cost and the benefits of the significant, but their qualification not readily agreed upon due to large complexity of the comparing conventional versus electrically controlled pneumatic brake operations and different types of rail services. Formation of the expert panel to provide the study analysis outcome. Booz Allen assembled 2 any expert knowledgeable about the electrically controlled pneumatic brakes from the rail industry, individual railroads, major private car owners, and brake supplier community. These individuals met with Booz Allen 3 sessions over the total of 6 years and days, 6 days in June, August, and November 2005 to review study progress resolved with the Federal Railroad Administration. Represents attended those sessions as observers of Appendix B. List the members of the panel, the Office of the Management and Budget Compliant Approach for the Benefit and Cost Analysis. For study, Booz Allen used its value measuring method tool that was developed specifically to assess the benefit and the cost risk trade-offs of the business setting, that having aspects of both private and investment consideration public policy, as is the case for the electrically controlled pneumatic brake technology. The value measuring methodology and compliant with the benefit cost requirements over the Office of Management Budget. Circular A4 is discussed in Appendix C. Development 3, implementation alternative with electronically controlled pneumatic brake conversion. Booz Allen had to develop these plans to give the most effective. The alternative two keys to underline each of these plans. 1, to achieve viable risk-adjusted benefit cost outcome. It is critical that the implementation of electrically controlled pneumatic brakes are in a manner that minimizes the amount of time between the impact of the conversion cost of the commercial of the benefits. The operating reality of the rail industry of such that the significant numbers of the freight cars overlay operation are unavailable for some time. Overlay is defined here as the capacity of the freight car to operate conventional electrically controlled pneumatic brake service. 1, 2, electrically controlled pneumatic brake stakeholders is shown in Figure 1. The following 5 principal stakeholders conversion U.S. Freight Railroad to electronically controlled pneumatic brake technology have crucial distinct role to play in the implementation process. The suppliers, the railroaders, private car owners, Association of American Railroads, and Federal Railroad Administration. Figure 1 shows the suppliers, the railroaders, private car owners, AAR and FRA, marking in red, marking in blue. The suppliers continue to supply technology development, electrically controlled pneumatic brakes, cost and efficient manufacturing capacity to meet demand. Railroad determine the key for the corridors, make an initial conversion, converted overall electrically controlled pneumatic brakes, equipment locomotives available to electronically controlled pneumatic converted freight trains. Private car owners determine the role of the conversion and how they will benefit work for the railroads convert with the electronically controlled, at least in terms of both conversion and hours for the time. And the AR in red enact the rules requirement electrically controlled pneumatic conversion locomotives and freight cars under overall timetable for conversion. FRA grant regulatory electrically controlled pneumatic operation determine the level of financial assistance design the benefit cost monitoring program. Booz Allen electrical panel, expert panel for the study brought together each of the stakeholders of the FRA participating in the observing the expert panel adds significant value to the study. Each of the members having a historical familiarity with the past decade with the explanation of electrically controlled pneumatic brake technology, practical barriers of the rail freight industry, implementation of it, and despite with the technology diverse benefits. Analytical participation in the numbers study for the cost benefits of electrically controlled pneumatic brakes and appreciate for the data limitation, ability, reliability, quantity, many of the benefits, and widespread application of them. Understanding the tipping points required to inherit with the implementation of electrically controlled pneumatic brakes, the joint stakeholders discussion of internal holders of each stakeholder must be overcome to begin with the implementation. Direct role implementation of the panel represented the diverse interests in who would be actually involved with the broad-scale implementation of electrically controlled pneumatic brake technology and could be reconveyed and desired and guide to implementation process. Potential participating in monitoring and reporting actual benefit cost outcome of the initial implementation shape of the intermediate and phase full industry conversion of electrically controlled pneumatic brake technology. The expert panel is a valuable resource that the result of the study is not accustomed to, or working together with the electronically controlled pneumatic, are not accustomed to working together with electronic controlled pneumatic technology. The FRA may wish to consider the keeping of the panel together as this future implementation of electrically controlled pneumatic technology. Electrically controlled implementation principles, and we're going to leave the blue box first. Based on our analysis for the work of the expert panel, the Booz Allen has identified several principles that guide the implementation of electrically controlled pneumatic technology, avoided pitfalls, and stalemated with the adoption of several years. As a result, Booz Allen reviewed the extensive literature of electrically controlled pneumatic technology interaction with the expert panel over 6 days in 2005. We're to invite several of the principles that we should shape the advancement of the electronically controlled pneumatic technology implementation. Principles of desire to overcome the barrier of the stale rails, freight industry, implementation of electrically controlled pneumatic date, and addressing real-world financial operation constraint. The principles summarized in Figure 1-2 to discuss the individual below. Alright, you have 7 different focuses. The initial conversion with a minimum of the benefit cost ratio. First conversion. New equipment require conversion kits. All new railroad cars and locomotives. Federal support. Provide incentive through the regulatory relief for the other programs. Gain sharing. Resolve equitable stakeholder financial imbalance. Date. Equipment capture. Collect, publish, and result with the initial conversion, intermediate conversion, capitalize experience with initial conversion, end state. Set dated time to make full conversion transparent. First principle involves 1. Prioritize initial conversion. First principle involves the carrier for careful focus with the type of the trains or the over of the rail corridors should be converted with the electronic controlled pneumatic brake maximize the benefit cost ratio. Conversion to a large extent with the most effective way to conduct with the prioritization is to allow the rail marketplace itself to make the decision with its contents. However, the Booz Allen research indicated the most favorable benefit cost ratio electronically controlled pneumatic brake technology is to be found in service to meet each of the following criteria. Heavy haul, high mileage movements of capacity constrained corridors such as Powder River Basin, coal, Midwestern, Eastern utilities, double stack intermodal movements to and from the West Coast. Involve the unit train fleets and train sets generally kept intact with significant period of time, minimize the number of parties required to complete with the conversion or manage the result of an electronic controlled pneumatic train operation. Last criterion particularly important, for example, long haul PRB or Powder River Basin coal movements require the most 2 railroads for mine or origin with the utility destination, which the utility or the major lessor leaser owns many of the train set and involve the inherent and easier of the reach conversion agreement. Stage of the conversion services involved with numerous railroad cars ownership of the gain sharing with the principal 4 disc below, number 4 disc below. It's also easier to achieve the smaller set participation. Alright, number 2, set electronically controlled pneumatic technology standards for all new equipment. The new manufacturer locomotive freight cars long lived as asset will be active the rail equipment fleet decades to come accordingly and keeping the principles 7 regarding the importance of setting with the transparent and the state for the conversion and essential for the electronic controlled pneumatic technology success for the dates established for the industry under which all the new equipment will have electronically controlled pneumatic and compliant. Compliant should have the different meaning for the locomotive of the freight cars, perhaps every specific freight car, tall types. Several of the basic economic drivers need to be taken into account. Number of units, typically less than 1,000 new locomotives are added to the fleet versus 30,000 to 75,000 new freight cars. Electrically controlled pneumatic unit cost for the cost of equipment of the new locomotive with electronically control of approximately 40,000, which is ordered by the 10 times the incremental amount required to equip the new freight car with electronically controlled pneumatic brakes. Use of the unit. The road locomotive are electronically controlled pneumatic equipped are most likely to be used in electronically controlled pneumatic service more quickly than certain types of the general use of the box cars, lowering mileage tank chemical cars, which lag only with electronically controlled pneumatic train service during the later phases of the conversion schedule. These drivers are the imperative to convert the electronically controlled pneumatic technology cost-effective manner makes it vital for the industry group of the interchange equipment the standard to develop the conversion timetable of the new equipment of the 2 components. Date and standard for the all new locomotives of the fully electronically controlled pneumatic operation. Date and standards which for the new freights are equipped with electronically controlled pneumatic start cars equipment of the most cost-effectively installed manufacturer of the car, then retrofit that makes them account that they may not operate with electronically controlled pneumatic service for several years. The AR will also need to set date standard final conversion electronic control pneumatic technology. All equipment used for the inner service is discussed in Principle 7. 3. Provide federal incentive to the principle grounded with the fact that the conversion rail freight industry electronic control pneumatic services accomplished through the public-private partnership involved in the private sector financial benefits and sound public policy. Expert panel conducted or concluded federal financial support critical component to overcoming the inherent electronic control pneumatic installation. This may seem surprisingly like of the significant projected final returns discussed to report the recommended conversion of Powder River Basin coal movements to electronic controlled pneumatic service. However, the federal regulatory relief makes up the significant component of these returns with the addition of the expert panel felt that the Booz Allen agrees the federal incentive discussed below accompanying federal pressure for the incentive at the beginning of the change of the makeup of the difference between the implementation conversion electrically controlled pneumatic with a near term continued absence for the action with the characterize the issue of the past decade. The federal supports of the two distinct forms regular relief from non-statutory inspection requirements when the purview of the FRA electronic control and the operation provide with the continuous electronically monitoring of the air brake conditioning pressure, removing the need for the certain physical brake inspection on currently conducted because such constant measurement monitoring is not available to conventional air brake technology. As discussed in Section 3 of the report, with the sufficient regulatory relief could include relaxation, removal of the cost brake inspection requirements for the train operating electronically controlled mode for intermediate terminal mode. Electronically controlled mode, intermediate terminal inspection, single car air brake test. Percent operating brakes, initial terminal departure. Provide gain sharing. 2. Loan grants if the railroad private car owners for the funding of the cost and initial provision first come, first served basis up to the predetermined total program. Low cost, low term loans, outright grants would augment with the financial benefit of the federal regulatory relief increase from it. Of the benefit potential for the more rapid volunteer conversion electronically controlled pneumatic. As discussed, the benefit section of the report most can benefit the electronic control pneumatic technology group to the railroads rather than private car owners who now provide the half of the U.S. freight car technology. Among the principal financial benefits likely to realize with the railroad electronically controlled pneumatic technology are reduced fuel consumption saved with the premature wheel and brake shoe wear, reduces cost delay with the brake inspection relief, increased capacity of the entire corridors are converted with electronic control pneumatic technology, reduced collision and derailment with improper train handling, reduced eliminated the accident damage with a shorter stopping distance, having easier moving locomotive engineering training. Private car owners operated with the following the two major categories. Use owners of the utilities who own the lease of the car of a long-term base for their own shipment. The two, the leaser owners who are such of the financial institutions whom the freight car ownership is strictly a portfolio asset leased out with each of the return on investment. Use owners likely to benefit with the directive of the two above with eventually from item 4, which should increase the turnaround with the train set, reduce the overall requirements for the equipment. Lease owners not likely to benefit directly from any of these items after they relive the primary financial return with the minimized lease rates, late lease days of the rolling stock and the demand with the market. The financial foundation gain sharing is that the electronically controlled pneumatic technology has favorable net benefit to the rail industry as a whole, with the benefits accrued with the primary with the railroad and with the cost of the final conversion. More than half of the fleet private car owners and some sharing with the benefits of the railroad private car owners could smooth the conversion path. Gain sharing could take one of the two forms: direct dollar contribute for the railroad portion of the cost free of the conversion, share of the benefits through the more favorable rate with a service agreement with the car ownership that help with the refund of the electronic controlled pneumatic trains converting with the private cars, and the gain share operation considered most compliant with the federal grant assistance that also made available. Step 5 is the capture conversion. Resolve will discuss on Appendix D with the diverse array of the actual field of experience with the electronic control pneumatic technology freight service with the U.S., Canada, and several of the other countries around the world. Experience shows vary with the promising operating with the financial benefit of the electronic control pneumatic technology. Same time, however, the non-rigorously collected set of the pre- and post-conversion performance data with the three basic reasons of the lack of the data. 1. Operation complexity result of the electronic controlled pneumatic experiment being prematurely communicated to do, inability to keep a small number of electronically pneumatic equipment equipped locomotives in the fleet, continuously available electronic controlled pneumatic converted freight cars, post-conversion changes in the operations such as moving longer train drilling, rendering difficult direct comparison before and after performance, proprietary data conservation, led railroads with full public disclosure of all pre- and post-electronic controlled pneumatic performance metrics. The PPP created the Shepard initial conversion electronically controlled technology should provide full performance monitoring, perform public reporting, such efforts not only to clearly define benefits electronically controlled in the current U.S. freight environment, but would also guide the later stage of the conversion by helping prioritizing the type of surface of the corridor to focus on when the initial conversions are completed. 6. Designing intermediate conversion. A significant number of electronically controlled pneumatic equipped unit trains are in operation in the U.S., most likely of the PRA's basin coal surface for the priority next must be determined. Conceptual intermediate stage conversion could take several different forms. One gain experience with the other for the type initial conversion previously not tested, such as the grain trains, auto rack shipment of main investment, manifest traits, or others such as the movements for the part with the initial conversion. Complex bleeding conversion of the entire market for the PRB coal, West Coal Coast Intermodule extent of the operational benefit, electronic control, pneumatic technology, some of the fastest growing segments of the rail service traffic, rail freight traffic base. Converting specific capacity to the constrained corridor of the all electronic control pneumatic service to rely with a greater train throughout the offered with electronic control pneumatic technology. The PPP form the oversee with the initial implementation could pertain with the shape of the intermediate stage that's close involved with the AR with the FRA. Twin goals intermediate stage should be to customize, continue maximize action control, electrically controlled pneumatic brakes while minimizing the cost and operational complexity. Shape of the conversion with an insulate with a steady increasing the residual of non-electronic controlled pneumatic services that could be readily converted as part of the final full industry deadline. Alright, 7, fixed end state within electronic control and conversion. Fixed end state with electronic control pneumatic conversion. With the last principle deals with the end state with electronic control and conversion, it is crucial overall conversion program design publicity throughout industrial priorities and initial conversion that will provide with the certainly conversion electronic control pneumatic technologies going forward, set with a deadline with an interline operation that can be averted. In-state planning may also drive the disposition current certain traffic categories for which economic conversions made it difficult to justify financially. For example, cars and locomotives beyond a certain age due to retirement during and shortly after the conversion schedule. Low mileage cars that use more storage than for transit. Equipment owned small short lines that may not have financial capability funding the conversion. The key: remove the installation regulatory uncertain conversion process for all stakeholders reaching key decisions laid out above principles before the conversion electronically controlled pneumatic technology begins. 1, selecting implementation alternatives. 7, implementation principles reviewed above do not support one possible alternative of the electronically controlled pneumatic installation for the undifferentiated requirement of electronically controlled pneumatic technology. Undifferentiated meaning of the establishment of the rule some percentage of the entire locomotive of the freight car fleets will have to be converted with electronically controlled pneumatic technology each year with a gradual basis. If there are some 29,000 freight locomotives, U.S. Freight approximately 1.4 million freight cars in service, equipping the entire fleet with the electronic control pneumatic cost of $430,000 per locomotive and $4,000 per freight car would totally approximate $6.8 billion. Put this number into the context of more combined annual capital expenditures of all the classes is. Eventually, even if the investment were to spread over 20 years at the rate of $350 million per year, it would require $47 million annual benefits over the 20 years to achieve the investment installment. To achieve even a relatively modest return of the 12%, realizing some size benefits of the stream from undifferentiated approach to electronically controlled pneumatic installation, highly unlikely above operation difficulties to maintain, making electronically controlled pneumatic equipped locomotives available with electronically controlled pneumatic converted cars, vice versa. Many of the few trains would actually operate with electronically controlled pneumatic mode unit with the major of the fleets was converted, thus near terms cost outstrips more distant benefits. As noted earlier, with a more economically rated approach for the electronically controlled pneumatic mitigation is the tailored initial installation from rail freight service with the following characteristics: heavy haul, high mileage freight cars remain together, dedicated train sets or concentrated selected rail corridors account significant percent of the rail traffic, the relative of the stakeholder percent of the movements. Have stakeholders familiar with the interest of electronic control pneumatic brake issues. The PR River Basin coal for the best meets all of the criteria. Cars of the River Basin in excess of 100 tons travel the average of 1,100 miles of mine. Utility train sets or units to circulate continue for the coal to conduits averaging excess 60,000 miles per year, highest of any bulk car type. Some of the 322 million tons of coal moved in 2004 over the 95-mile Burlington Northern Santa Fe Union Pacific Joint Line in Wyoming, accounting for 130 trains per day, loaded and emptied. In addition, with another 80 million tons moved out of the river basin of the BNSF North Corridor. The River Basin coal represented the estimated 26% of the total of the Class 1 revenues totaled ton miles in 2004, more than a core of all the rail traffic. The trains that often owned with the utilities themselves leased the utilities major rail equipment, financial owners of the GE rail service. Many stakeholders involved with the movement of the railroad basin, the PRB racing coal filed with the electronically controlled pneumatic developments attended one or more of the meetings filed with the expert panel of both railroads of the BUNS and southern companies that initiated experience with electronic controlled pneumatic technology. Also incorporated rail-related studies of electronic controlled pneumatic technology, significant benefits such as the wheel life, giving sheer operational scale, stakeholder technology awareness, PRB coal traffic, the electronic controlled pneumatic implementation has both economic and practical sense. However, the current estimated 2,800 railroad locomotives and 600 train sets dedicated to movement of the rail basin coal, thus less than 10% of the base industry locomotive roster, less than 6% of the freight car fleet, generate 26% of the physical activity measured in revenue tons of the leverage equivalent of the activity. Clearly a focal point of electrically controlled pneumatic implementation. Significant PRB experience with the electronically controlled operation revenue for the relay and solid foundation conversion with the electronically controlled pneumatic in the granite intermodal arenas, particularly with the congested mainline corridor of the PRB basin coal movements, fleet track space for the unit train operation, aggregated unit tolls, trains, all types account with almost for the 2/5 of the Class 1 car miles and would be focused with the second stage conversion of electronically controlled pneumatic. In each quantifiable benefits consideration section 3.3 and 3.9, factoring into analysis the result benefit of the significant tone table to 1.1, a one-time conversion cost of 28,000 locomotives, 80,000 freight cars, totaling 432 million annual benefits of fuel, oil, brake inspection, brake shoe savings, total approximately 170 million using consumption of the PRB coal share, revenue total menu miles in good proximity. Proxy for share of the total Class 1 saving in each beneficial category. Alright, the PR Basin implementation plan quantifiable, but cost benefits, locomotive conversion 112 billion, freight conversion 320 million, fuel savings 78 million, reduced wheel defects 45 million, brake inspection savings 45 million, brake shoe savings 2 million, and those are totals are 432 and 470. The Bose Allen conducted detailed risk adjustment analysis for the alternative of the VL value measured methodology, which assumed 3 years of equipment conversion period. The result of the contained dependency with indicated with even with the highest discount rate of 12%, payback per 3,000 years, IRR 47%, net present value of almost 700 million. An effective conversion of the PRB coal basin service with the electronically controlled pneumatic brake technology showcased the conversion not only because it's significant, size appears financially sound, but also because it involved the 5 stakeholder groups created with the railroad operating benefits, efficiency of the primary over the railroad service provided over the nation's energy generation. Successful implementation of the ECP technology of the PRB coal basin would create the model for proving the next step of the set of the major services for the intermodal auto and all unit train grain. Figure 1.3 showed the year's progress, leveraged approach of the conversion showed, balanced near year term benefits, sustainable implementation. Phase 1 focus PRB coal. Phase 2 focus on unit trains over the Phase 3 finalized implementation. Phase 1 would focus with the PRB coal for the discuss about converting with the ECP with the technology carefully beyond planned several years timetable capturing actual call for the benefit of the conversion, comparing with the project with the UF, the expand with the Canada oversee the vital next stage of the effort. Phase 2 would expand with the conversion of the other trains with the grain, with the intermodal auto, and so forth, beginning first on the conject with the mainline corridor, they already with the PRB coal, so that the capacity related benefit of the ECP, the technology could be extended with the BM with the PRB joint line. The objective of the stage would complete all unit train conversion for the account over the about with a 40% of the Class 1 rail volume as measured in the car miles. Phase 3 would likely to be most challenging state, but even if they were to build the significant conversion for the date, would be focused on a mixed freight train with a multiple type of traffic, the origin and destination, which would be hard to convert with the handling short lines equipment. The fleet would be challenging at this stage. Civil navigation for the stage with the setting with the timetable electronically controlled pneumatic version identification of the equipment that would not convert with the as part of Phase 1. Figure 14514. Current situation, phased implementation. Um, Lack of funding, limited experience with employee burdens over operating or outdated technology. ECP now. Grants, gain sharing, Envision, monitoring, operational employee lifestyle gains, train diagnostics. Or the in-state would also have a significant positive impact with the rail safety aspect. Short stop and distance estimated 60-70% of the heavy of the subordinate coal train with an ordered 40% of the lighter shorter train, reduced train and collision with a great crossing accident with the stopping distance and key factor. Improve the train holding and the handling. Remove the chance for the runaway train with the result of the derailment, the continuous brake pressure for the electronic controlled technology, pneumatic technology. Maintain the ability to stop the train or move the threads with the plane of the turns depleted to air brake reservoir before they are needed again. Wiring the train, provide with the platform gradual addition to the other performance of the monitoring devices, sensor based technology needed to maintain the continuous feedback loop and train condition on the crew of the man in any centralized monitoring. 1.5. Next step. Bose Allen suggests the following next step of the ECP for the implementation consideration of the FRA with the other electronically controlled pneumatic stakeholders. Determine the role of the external panel of the conversion process. Formalize with the electronically controlled pneumatic version for the near-term decision for the items of the FRA and the AAR. Jointly address the reach agreement with the details of the principles to merit the conversion to proceed with a voluntary industrial basis and determine participation in the international conversion. Begin phase 1. Alright, Section 2, Chapter 2, Rail Brake Operation Safety Impacts. Testing.